Hi, and welcome to this intermediate course where we're going to be going through the sourcing share analysis that applies specifically to Amazon vendor. You can find this additional report inside the retail analytics module, and this is something that is proprietary to Merchant Spring. So you won't find this information inside Seller Central. You'll find it in Merchant Spring. Now, let me talk you through how to use it. But before we do that, I actually want to get to some of the basics. It's really important to understand how we used it and make sure you don't misuse it or use it in the wrong way. The first thing I would point out is before we even go into the sourcing share report, the sourcing share report really relies on the ship revenue and ship COGS report. And we're using two different views, and we're actually combining both the manufacturing view and the sourcing view. And you have seen the toggles up here. But just what I want to do first is just to reiterate the definition of those two different sources, so sourcing and manufacturing. So let's start with manufacturing. The manufacturing view is only available to manufacturer brands on Amazon, and it shows the aggregated sales and inventory performance of your entire brand, regardless from where Amazon has sourced the products. So these products may be sourced from your own inventory or from a distributor or from another country, for example. Whereas the sourcing view shows you the metrics that relate directly to your Amazon vendor account and its inventory for that particular country. And it reflects the actual sales and inventory that Amazon has sold and sourced from your inventory, as I said before. So these are two different views. And in theory, that means the sourcing view should be a subset of the manufacturing view. Right? And the difference being either distributors where Amazon may have sourced a product or from another country. That's the theory. Let's talk about the practice. So here in our demo environment here, and I'm looking at the sourcing share report, I'm just going to toggle it to actual units. And what you can see here is we are actually looking at two different gaps. The first one is lost units. The definition of that is where we consider a unit lost when Amazon decides to source a product in order to fulfill a customer order, not from your specific inventory, but from somewhere else. So in other words, Amazon has decided to either source a product from a distributor, or as we see in many instances in Europe, but also in North America, Amazon has decided to source the product from another country. Now, there could be a variety of reasons for that. I don't have complete insight into that, but it could be either because your inventory is not available, or it could be an arbitrage opportunity for Amazon. Maybe they have access to a lower unit COGS in another country, for example, or from another distributor. But the point is, lost units really reflect the opportunity or where you've lost sales as a result of Amazon deciding to ship from another source instead of your source that is directly connected to your vendor account. So what we do is we calculate that at a particular product level. So here we've got all of the ASINs, and what you see here is we will calculate for every single ASIN, how many units did you lose during the time period selected, and what is your sourcing share as a result. So what happens is on a daily basis, we will add up all of these units and provide an estimate of the units lost and what your sourcing share is. So that's the yellow line here. We express it as a percentage. And that really says of all the units that Amazon has fulfilled in a particular country, in this case, the United States, what proportion was fulfilled from your inventory. So that's one side of the coin where Amazon is sourcing stock from somewhere else. And the table below here, obviously you can see the trend here across your entire account. The table below here will then help you identify what those products are. Which particular product is Amazon sourcing elsewhere. So that gives you, insight into that. Now, you've also noticed that, and there's not a lot of data here in my demo account, but there's also an exported piece here. So the reverse also happens. And, in fact, sometimes what happens is that your sourcing view or the number of units that you've shipped under your sourcing view is actually larger than the number of units that Amazon reports under the manufacturing view. Now, that's sort of counterintuitive because I said earlier before that one is ideally a subset of the other in theory. But what happens is Amazon would also use your inventory in a particular country to perhaps fulfill orders in another country. So for example, and I've seen a couple of examples here, Amazon may receive an order in Mexico and may decide to fulfill that order with inventory from your vendor account in the United States. In that case, that unit will still show up as ship revenue or ship COGS under the sourcing view, but it will not be included in the manufacturing view for the United States. In fact, if you had access to the Mexican view, you would see it show up there. So those are the two different things that are happening there. You have lost units, which represent the delta between manufacturing and sourcing at an ASIN level within a particular country, in this case, the United States, but elsewhere. And then on the other side, we have the export units, where Amazon has sourced from your inventory to fulfill orders in another country outside the country where your vendor account resides. So in terms of the rest of this report, obviously we show how that progresses over time at the total vendor account level in this chart above here. And then this pie chart here, which show you graphically, how those numbers break down. So we'll start with, your total shipped COGS in a particular market, and we break that down between what came from your inventory and was sent into the local market, what did Amazon source from elsewhere, and that what portion was actually exported as well. Now, of course, there's a question of, what do you do with this data and what's the so what? Well, there's really two specific things that are worth thinking about. One is if you see one of your products where Amazon is consistently sourcing from somewhere else, clearly that represents a lost sales opportunity for you or your client, and it's worth working through how you can close that gap. Is this around pricing or availability? Obviously I don't have insights into that, but there's an opportunity to go after there. Secondly, you want to keep an eye on what products Amazon is exporting elsewhere, and maybe have a dialogue with your vendor manager to better understand, okay, where are those products going? And maybe there are further opportunities there, either by setting up a local vendor account in the country that's there, or coming to another arrangement with Amazon in order to maximize that opportunity. I mean, the upside here is clearly there's a demand. Amazon's fulfilling demand, so there's an opportunity there as well. Now, I would be remiss of me not to sort of talk a little bit about Europe, and that you do have to be careful with interpreting this data, particularly in Europe if you're a client or if as a vendor you are part of the PIX program. So this is where Amazon will ask you to fulfill inventory or move inventory to, say, Germany and the UK, and then Amazon will do the fulfillment and distribution to all the other countries within Europe, for example. It's quite an efficient program, but keep in mind that all of the principles I spoke about will be reflected here as well. So, for example, if you're shipping everything from Germany and you were then to look at your vendor account in France, you will see 100% lost units, because Amazon will be sourcing all of its inventory from Germany and nothing from your local account. So at a manufacturing level, all the demand is there, but at a sourcing level, if you look at France in particular, a country that's outside of your warehouse location, you'll see very little, if nil, ship revenue coming from that country. So technically the charts will be correct, but they will show really large gaps in terms of lost units. And if you were to go to the German vendor account, you will see a high share of exported units as Amazon uses that stock to fulfill demand in other countries. It is by far one of the more complex topics that is out there in terms of Amazon vendor, but I hope you found this session useful just to start to wrap your head around how we best think through this, and how looking at sourcing share and the differences between sourcing and manufacturing from a shipped COGS point of view can lead to opportunities. So thank you so much for watching this particular session. I think that brings us to the end of this intermediate course. So thank you for sticking out and making it all the way to the end. And I look forward to seeing you at our next course.